Ciao, and welcome to Immersion Travel Italy. I'm Katerina Ferrara, author of the Travel Italy book series, blogger, and your host. This is episode 20B on Sicily and Palermo. These episodes are part of a larger Regional Capitals of Italy series, taking you to each of the 20 regions of Italy, where we dive into the capitals and learn more about Italy beyond the tourist trail. In our last episode, we stood inside Palermo's monuments of power. We traced Sicily's sweeping history from the ancient Greeks to Norman kings. We climbed the cathedral rooftop and descended into the crypt. We stood beneath gold mosaics that have shimmered for nearly 900 years. Today we finish our walking tour of Palermo and then move beyond into other cities of Sicily. We step into festivals where the entire city gathers in devotion. We listen to jazz echo through medieval palaces. We unlock hidden treasures normally closed to the public. We taste gelato that carries Arabic roots. We wander markets that have stood open since the Arab period. We rise to Monreale and we move beyond the capital with day trips to Cefalu, Agrigento, San Vito lo Capo, and Mondello. For this podcast, I had to choose a limited list of sites and experiences. Not enough time in 2 podcast episodes to travel through a land that is vast and layered. My book, The Ultimate Festival and Travel Guide Sicily, is 550 pages and includes towns and regions we cannot reach here. Trapani, the Agadi Islands, Mount Etna, Taormina, Catania, Enna, Ragusa, Modica, Scicli, Noto, and the Aeolian Islands. Marsala, Erice, Segesta, and many more are covered in the book. Full walking tours, structured itineraries, restaurant recommendations, accommodations, logistics and train information, and hundreds of festivals organized by a calendar so you can see what's available during your visit. This podcast gives you the narrative, but the book gives you the framework. You'll find the book link below in the description. And now let's continue our adventure in Palermo. We were on our walking tour with our third stop being the Quattro Canti. This is one of the most theatrical spaces in the city. Built between 1608 and 1620 under Spanish rule, this octagonal intersection marks the crossing of Palermo's 2 main arteries, Via Maqueda and Corso Vittorio Emanuele. The Spanish viceroys wanted order. They wanted visibility. They wanted a capital that looked controlled and impressive. Each of the 4 curved facades represents one of Palermo's historic quarters. On the lower level stand fountains representing the 4 seasons. Above them are statues of the Spanish kings, Charles V among them, reinforcing royal authority. At the top are 4 female saints who historically have protected the city: Santa Cristina, Santa Ninfa, Santa Olivia, Santa Agata. What makes the Quattro Canti especially powerful is what rises above it. Directly overlooking the square are 2 major Baroque churches facing one another. The Church of San Giuseppe dei Teatini, completed in the 17th century, was built by the Theatine order. Its large dome and richly decorated interior represent the Counter-Reformation era, when Catholic architecture became dramatic and persuasive. You can climb to the rooftop here, and we did do that. Opposite stands the Church of Santa Caterina di Alessandria, originally attached to the Dominican convent. Built in the late 16th century, it was one of Palermo's most ornate interiors. Layered in colored marble, stucco, and intricate detail, it was designed to overwhelm the senses and assert Catholic power during a time of religious tension in Europe. The church represents power from above. The Dominican convent bakery was originally opened in the 1300s, and it represents life below. And what happened in that bakery, what we tasted, what we learned about those convent recipes, that's a story I tell in my book, in the Festa Fusion Palermo, Chapter 13. Because some experiences deserve more than a mention. They deserve the full story. From above, these churches quite literally look down on the crossroads. The Spanish era reshaped Palermo with new streets, palaces, and religious institutions. It centralized authority and reinforced aristocratic control. The Quattro Canti became the symbolic center of this new urban vision, disciplined, decorative, and politically charged. Next to this intersection, you'll find the Fontana Pretoria, also known as the Fountain of Shame, right next to Santa Caterina. The massive Renaissance fountain with naked statues, originally made for a Florentine villa in 1554 and then sold and moved to Palermo in 1574. The locals were scandalized by all of the nudity. It's right here in the Quattro Canti. Palermo has always layered power with chaos, and the Quattro Canti captures that perfectly. The next stop is La Maturana, my favorite church in town, and also San Cataldo, Palermo's Arab Norman soul. If you want to understand why Palermo is unlike anywhere else in Italy, you step into the space with these two churches. The first one is called the Chiesa di Santa Maria dell'Ammiraglio, also known as La Materana, and the second is Chiesa di San Cataldo. They stand side by side in Piazza Bellini, and together they explain Sicily better than any lecture ever could. La Maratona was founded in 1143 by George of Antioch, the admiral of Roger II's fleet. Think about that for a moment. A Greek admiral serving a Norman king, Roger II, on an island most recently ruled by the Arabs, built a Byzantine-style church in the center of Palermo. Inside, the mosaics shimmer in gold. Christ Pantocrator looks down from the dome in full Byzantine authority. Greek inscriptions remain. You're not in Rome. You're not in Florence. You're in a kingdom that fused East and West deliberately. Right next door stands the Church of San Cataldo, built in 1154. Its three red domes almost look like something transported from North Africa. The exterior is severe and geometric. The interior is stark, bare, and quiet. San Cataldo feels almost Islamic in its restraint, and that's not accidental. The Normans retained Arab artisans and engineers. They governed through continuity rather than destruction, and seeing these churches side by side, you feel it physically. Palermo is a convergence. This is where Arab, Byzantine, and Norman architecture blended. Before we talk experiences, let's talk about Palermo's festivals. The Festino di Santa Rosalia, held July 14th and 15th, is by far the most important festival of Palermo. Santa Rosalia was born to a noble family in the 12th century, daughter of a lord and niece of King Roger. She had every privilege, and she walked away from it. She chose to become a hermit, first in a cave on Monte Quisquina. Then, when people started seeking her out, she moved to an even more remote cave on Monte Pellegrino overlooking Palermo. She disappeared, forgotten, until 1624. That year, plague hit Palermo, devastating. The city was dying. According to tradition, Santa Rosalia appeared in a vision to a sick woman, then to a hunter. She told him where to find her remains in the cave. She said to carry her bones through the streets of Palermo. They did as she requested, and the plague ended. The city proclaimed her patron saint, La Santuzza, the little saint, and every July since 1624, Palermo has celebrated. The festival runs between July 1st and 10th, with the 14th being the night that counts. The Carro Trionfale, a massive float, carries Santa Rosalia's statue through the streets. The thing is enormous. I have pictures on my Instagram, and I'll try and remember to put pictures in the blog that I have for every episode. It's 10 meters high. It's decorated with roses, angels, cherubs, gold, Baroque excess. It's created each year in a unique way. It's pulled by oxen. Sometimes it was even pulled by elephants in the 17th century. The procession starts at the Palermo Cathedral around 8 p.m. It moves slowly down via Vittorio Emanuele through the Quattro Canti, winding toward Foro Italico at the waterfront. It takes nearly 3 hours to cover these 2.5 kilometers. The route traces suffering, the streets where the plague victims died, the neighborhoods that lost entire families. This isn't pageantry, it's memory. Along the way, music, performances, dancers, actors in period costume, projections on historic buildings showing the plague, the discovery of the saints' relics, the salvation of the city. People line the streets by the thousands, families, locals who have been coming every year for decades. They shout, "Viva Palermo e Viva Santa Rosalia." The procession ends at Foro Italico around 11 p.m. with amazing fireworks, a massive display over the harbor. It lasts 45 minutes. The whole city is watching. The 15th is quieter. The saints' relics are carried in a silver urn in a more solemn procession. Masses, prayers, and many people make the pilgrimage route up to Monte Pellegrino to her sanctuary, some walking barefoot. As far as food related to the festival, the sfincione, the thick Sicilian pizza with tomato, onion, anchovy, and breadcrumbs, the sticchiola, grilled lamb, intestines wrapped in parsley, squeezed with lemon, panelle e croque, chickpea fritters, and potato croquettes, stuffed in sesame rolls. This is what Palermo eats when it celebrates the Sicilia Jazz Festival. Each year in late June into early July, Palermo hosts the Sicilia Jazz Festival, a celebration built on decades of musical resistance and persistence. Jazz has deep roots here. In the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, when Palermo struggled under the shadow of the mafia and organized crime, many major artists avoided the South. but jazz musicians still came. Much of that was due to Ignacio Garcia, founder of the brass group, who tirelessly brought international artists to the city and fought for a permanent home for jazz at the Real Teatro di Santa Cecilia. The modern festival grew from that foundation. It's known for pairing international headliners with Sicilian jazz orchestra, creating original arrangements rather than standard tour performances. Concerts take place not only in theaters like the Teatro di Verdura, but also in historic settings such as the Palazzo Chiamonte Steri and Santa Maria del Spasimo. What makes it distinctive is the blend of history, architecture, sound. Jazz echoes through the medieval palaces and roofless churches. Students from Sicilian conservatories perform alongside global artists. It's contemporary, international, and deeply rooted in Palermo's cultural resistance. If you're there in the fall, each October and November, Palermo hosts Le Vie dei Tesori, which translates to the Way of Treasures. The festival began in 2006 as a university initiative to open normally closed buildings to the public. It grew quickly. Today it spans multiple Sicilian cities, but Palermo is the center. For several weeks, dozens of hidden sites open their doors. Aristocratic palaces, underground prisons, archives, cloisters, rooftop terraces, even 9th century Arab tunnels beneath the city. You purchase coupon booklets and choose your visits, moving through Palermo in a way that feels like a treasure hunt. What makes it special is access. Places that are closed every other day of the year are suddenly available. You see graffiti left by prisoners centuries ago, frescoed ceilings in private palaces, cooling chambers carved into stone, engineering from the Arab period still functioning beneath modern streets. Le Vie dei Tesori reveals a Palermo that most visitors never see, and once you experience it, the city never feels surface level again. Each November, usually early to mid-month, Palermo holds the Sherbet Festival, the international celebration of artisan gelato, held in Piazza Verdi in front of the Teatro Massimo. Sherbet comes from the ancient Arabic word sharabat, a sweet fruit drink introduced into Sicily during the Arab rule. Over time, with access to mountain ice and evolving techniques, these early refreshments developed into what we now recognize as Sicilian gelato. The festival honors that layered history. The atmosphere is lively but approachable. You watch gelato being made fresh, taste as you wonder, and stand beneath the grand facade of Teatro Massimo as music and conversation fill the square. 4 days, dozens of gelato makers, hundreds of flavors. Come hungry. Next, we'll talk about experiences, starting with the market. To understand Palermo, you need to understand the market. We'll walk first the Mercato di Ballarò, and when you arrive, the volume immediately rises. This isn't curated or staged. Ballarò dates back to the Arab period, back when Palermo was one of the largest cities in the Mediterranean. The Arabs reorganized agriculture here. They introduced irrigation systems. They brought citrus, sugar, rice, almonds, and spices. They reshaped what grew in Sicilian soil. Oranges glowing like lanterns, lemons heavy with oil, mint, basil, fennel, all on the tables right in front of you. Swordfish laid out on silver slabs, anchovies glistening, vendors calling out prices in a rhythm that feels closer to a chant than speech. The air smells of salt, frying oil, espresso. You don't walk through the Ballarò quickly. You move around crates. You dodge scooters. You step aside as someone carries a basket overhead. You grab panele straight from the hot oil or espresso at a counter. Then drift toward the port and you'll reach the Vucceria. The name likely comes from French boucherie, the butcher's market, a reminder of Angevin and later European rule that layered the city's vocabulary. Once again, this is the loudest meat and fish market in Palermo. In the morning, the fish arrives. By evening, tables spill into the streets. Music plays. Wine is poured. It's a very social place. Palermo has always been a port city, a trading city, and the market is where those identities met. Both of these markets are a true experience. One of our most meaningful evenings in Palermo took place not at a monument, but at a home. We booked a private cooking class through Cesarine with a lady named Gilda Falia. She was a magnificent host. It was just me and my husband, and she welcomed us into her house, into her backyard kitchen. I had made a special request that I wanted to learn how to make arancini. As you know, I love them. We shaped rice in our hands, carefully tucked in the filling, a mozzarella ball and meat sauce, and rolled them in breadcrumbs for frying. We also prepared focaccia, stretching the dough and pressing it in place with a lovely outdoor kitchen as the evening light softened around us. We could hear music from the beach nearby. It felt relaxed and unhurried, more like cooking with a family than attending a class. We sat outside afterward and enjoyed what we had made together, talking about food, tradition, and daily life in Sicily. It was simple, warm, and deeply personal, the kind of experience that stays with you long after you leave. And I will say that I have made the arancini at home a few times, so I did learn. I share more details about this experience and how to arrange something similar in Chapter 31 of my Ultimate Festival and Travel Guide. A next stop, a next experience, Monte Pellegrino and the Sanctuary of Santa Rosalia. One of the most meaningful experiences in Palermo is rising just above it. Whether you drive or hike up Monte Pellegrino, the city falls away behind you. The port thins into lines of white, the historic center compresses, and the Tyrrhenian Sea opens wide in the distance. Halfway up the mountain is the Sanctuary of Santa Rosalia, built directly into a natural cave. In 1624, during the devastating plague, the relics were discovered here and carried in a procession to the city. According to tradition, the plague ended. The sanctuary feels less like a constructed church and more like part of the mountain itself. Stone walls, cool air, quiet light. When you step inside, you feel the sacred place. And when you step back outside, you have a panoramic view over Palermo and Mondello Beach. That completes the experience. Monte Pellegrino gives you perspective, both geographical and spiritual, and it helps you understand why this mountain is woven into Palermo's identity. In another direction is Monreale. It's about a 20-minute drive into the hills. We went in a car, but you can also take a bus. Monreale is a small town. It's elevated. What rises at its center is one of the most overwhelming artistic statements in Europe, Monreale Cathedral. Built in the 12th century under William II, known as William the Good, the cathedral was a political act as much as a religious one. William wanted to rival Palermo's cathedral and reinforce royal authority, but the tradition adds something more intimate to the story. It is said that William experienced a vision of the Virgin Mary, who revealed a hidden treasure and instructed him to build a great church on this very hill in his honor. And that's where he got the money to pay for the church. Whether this is legend or symbolism, the message is clear. This was not only strategy, it was destiny. He chose the hill overlooking the capital deliberately. Inside, more than 6,000 square meters of Byzantine mosaics cover the walls. He built just like his grandfather had. Gold, endless gold. The entire biblical narrative unfolds from Genesis to Revelation in glittering tesserae. Creation, Adam and Eve, Noah, Abraham. The image of Christ Pantocrator dominates the apse, vast and luminous, his hand raised in blessing. When light enters the cathedral, the gold does not simply reflect, it glows. The mosaics were created by Byzantine craftsmen working under Norman rule in a kingdom that had absorbed Arab engineering and Greek administration. One of the things I love about Monreale is the cloister. This Benedictine cloister is so historic. Slender columns line the courtyard. Each one is carved differently. Some are inlaid with mosaic patterns that have deteriorated over time but are still beautiful. Some feature animals, leaves, and geometric designs. And you can also find the one that shows William II finding the treasure. Walk slowly through the cloister and notice how no two columns are identical. This feels intimate compared to the cathedral's grandeur. Contemplative. We also climbed the roof at Monreale. We could see down to Palermo below, the Conca d'Oro that once was filled with citrus groves, and beyond the sea. This was a full experience, rising above the capital and seeing the golden vision of kingship and faith in this Catholic church. When you drive back down to Palermo, the city feels different because now you've seen it from above, the way William the Good intended. Let's talk about some day trips. This section was very hard for me, really hard, because I have researched and visited so many Italian towns for the book. I have full chapters on Messina, Catania, Syracuse, Agrigento, Ragusa, Modica, Mount Etna, Erice, Trapani, Marsala, Scicli. You get it, the Aeolian Islands. But I can't cover all of them in the podcast, so I had to choose 3 towns and 1 beach. And so I also have podcast episodes I will mention for Noto and the Infuriata. I launched that podcast episode in September of 2024. I've got an episode on Syracuse from August of 24. I have a podcast episode for Taormina from August of 24 and Catania from February of 24. So I'm giving you day trips that I haven't already covered in other podcasts, but please, the book has so much more detail for you. The first day trip is Cefalù. I wanted to choose a couple of places you could go easily by train, and Cefalù is a great spot. It's 70 kilometers or 43 miles from Palermo. The direct train takes about 45 minutes, about €6. Trains run frequently throughout the day. It's very easy. No transfer is needed. Cefalù sits beneath a massive rock called La Rocca. The Greeks were here, the Romans, the Byzantines, and then the Normans arrived in 1063 and changed everything. Roger II built a cathedral in 1131. It was supposed to be his final resting place. It never happened, but what he left behind became one of Sicily's most important Norman monuments. The town grew as a fishing village. It stayed small, it stayed working. Even now, with tourists filling the beaches in the summer, you can still see fishermen mending nets in the early morning. Cefalù gives you three things in one trip: the UNESCO World Heritage Site cathedral with the Byzantine mosaics that rival Monreale, a beach that you can swim at long and sandy, and a medieval town that hasn't been sanitized for tourists. You can climb La Rocca for views. You can eat fish over the water, magnificent sunsets. You can walk the streets that curve and climb exactly as they did 800 years ago. The Cathedral of Cefalù, the Duomo, was built to dominate. Roger II wanted something that would announce Norman power across the Mediterranean, and he got it. The facade has two massive towers, Arab Norman in style. Inside, the mosaics glow. Christ Pantocrator fills the apse. Gold background, intense expression, Byzantine craftsmen made this 12th century beauty. The mosaics here are different than Monreale. They're older, starker, more austere. You feel the weight of Norman authority. I also want to let you know that you can climb to the rooftop, again, in the towers of the cathedral, and it has amazing views. I highly recommend it. It's a very interesting historical tour as well, so I think it's worth climbing up. It's much easier of a climb than the Rocca. The rock is the giant rock that overlooks Cefalù. You climb up, it's a very steep path. It takes about an hour. At the top, there's ruins of a medieval fortress, the Temple of Diana from the 5th century BC, and views that stretch across the entire northern coast. Go early in the morning or late afternoon. The midday sun makes it a pretty stiff trek. Bring water and wear good shoes. Worth it for the view. Also in town is the medieval laundry. The working laundry was built in the Middle Ages. It still has water flowing through it. Stone basins, vaulted ceilings, steps leading down from street level. Women came here to wash their clothes for centuries. The water comes from the Cefalino River, cold, very cold, clear and constant. Don't miss it because it shows you a part of town that was used every day by the locals. The festival I want to mention for Cefalù is the Festa del Santissimo Salvatore, held between August 2nd and the 6th. Cefalù's patron saint. The big event happens on the 6th, the Feast of the Transfiguration. The finale is Nitina Amari. A greased pole extends out over the harbor, horizontal, about 10 meters long. A flag hangs on the end. Young men try and cross it barefoot. The pole is covered with soap and grease, and most fall into the sea. Again, I've got this on my Instagram. The crowd roars. The tradition dates back centuries. It started as a test of skill for sailors, and now it's the main event. Everyone gathers at the old pier, and you want to spot early. The festival, of course, is religious, Catholic, including street food, music, but the pole over the sea is the one that everybody talks about. Our next day trip is going to be to Agrigento in the Valley of the Temples. Agrigento is 130 kilometers or about 80 miles from Palermo. There is a train from Palermo Centrale to Agrigento. It takes about 2 hours. There's currently construction work on this line, so check schedules. It's about €9. Once in Agrigento, you have to take a local bus to the Valley of the Temples. It's a bit of a walk. The Greeks founded Argos here in 582 BC. It became one of the richest cities in the ancient Mediterranean, bigger than Athens at its peak. The tyrant Theron ruled from 488 to 472 BC. Under him, Agrigento exploded. Temples rose along the ridge. The city expanded. Wealth poured in from agriculture and trade. Then came the Carthaginians, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Arabs, each leaving marks. But nothing matches what the Greeks built. The Valley of the Temple survived because it was abandoned. No medieval city was built over it. The temple stood, weathered, endured. One of the most important Greek archaeological sites outside of Greece. Better preserved than most sites in Greece itself. You walk along the ridge with the temples on both sides, almond trees, olive groves, the Mediterranean in the distance. The Temple of Concordia is nearly intact, built around 440 BC. It survived because it was converted into a Catholic church in the 6th century. Come for the temple, stay for the scale, and wear comfortable shoes. It's a hike on rocky trails, I would call them. The Temple of Concordia is the best preserved Greek temple outside of Athens, built in 440 BC with Doric columns and perfect proportions. The Temple of Juno is at the eastern end of the ridge, smaller than Concordia, still magnificent. 25 columns still stand. You can see fire damage from when the Carthaginians burned the city in 406 BC, black marks on the stone. The altar is here. This is where they sacrificed animals. The blood channels are still visible. Views from here stretch across the valley, and you see why the Greeks chose this ridge. There's also the Archaeological Museum. That museum holds what came out of the valley: statues, pottery, giant carved figures that held up the temple of Olympian Zeus. Agrigento's most important festival is Mondorlo in Fiore, the Almond Blossom Festival, held March 7th to the 15th. The festival started in 1937. The idea was simple: celebrate spring when the almond trees bloom across the valley of the temples. It's grown into an international folklore festival. Dance groups from around the world come to Agrigento, from Morocco, Tunisia, Portugal, Philippines, Peru, and they perform in traditional costumes. Again, I have this on my Instagram page at Katerina Ferrara Author. The opening ceremony happens at the Temple of Concordia. They light the Tripod of Friendship. A torch parade winds through the city. For 9 days, performances happen throughout the town and at the archaeological park. Folk music, beautiful dances, beautiful dress, and cultural exchange. In 2025, Agrigento was named Italy's capital of culture. Our third visit will be to San Vito lo Capo, about 62 miles or 100 kilometers outside of Palermo. You're going to have to take a car up the A29 highway toward Trapani and exit at Castelmare del Golfo, and then follow the signs to San Vito lo Capo. It's about an hour drive. You can stop in Scopello on the way, a beautiful village with a tonara, an old tuna fishery. No train service. There is a bus, but it has a limited schedule, only 4 buses a day. San Vito lo Capo started as a small sanctuary. The chapel was built in the 15th century, dedicated to San Vito, a Christian martyr. Saracen pilots raided the coast for centuries. The fortress walls around the sanctuary were built in the 1500s for protection, and the town grew up inside the walls. Tuna fishing dominated life here. The tonara brought work. The mazzana, the ritual tuna slaughter, happened every spring. Tourism came late. In the 1960s and 70s, the beach became famous. The town transformed, but still stayed small. The population is about 4,000 people. Couscous became a local specialty because of North African influence. Arab traders and Tunisian fishermen started bringing it. The connection across the Mediterranean was always there. San Vito lo Capo is known for the beach. 3 kilometers of white sand, water so clear it looks tropical, turquoise, transparent, surrounded by mountains. This is constantly rated one of Italy's most beautiful beaches. The setting is dramatic. Monte Monaco looms at one end, Monte Cofano at the other. The Gulf of Macquarie spreads in between. And you're also close to the Zingaro Nature Reserve, 7 kilometers of protected coastline, hiking trails, hidden coves. Here you can rent umbrellas and chairs at the Lidos, or you can bring your own setup. There's a free beach mixed with the private sections. The water stays warm into October, and the sand is fine and soft. This is what people talk about when they say the Caribbean of Sicily. The sanctuary of San Vito was originally built in the 15th century. The fortress structure is what makes it interesting. You can still see the defensive walls, the narrow passages, the watchtower. It was built to protect from raids, and the chapel became a fortress, faith and survival combined. The annual festival in San Vito lo Capo is the Couscous Festival, held between September 19th and 28th. The festival started in 1998, and it's become an international competition. Chefs from 20 centuries come to San Vito to compete. From Morocco, Tunisia, Israel, Palestine, Brazil, Philippines, each cooking their own version of couscous. The festival runs for 10 days, and the beach becomes a stage. Free concerts every night. Big Italian artists perform. Past years have included Pino Daniele, Carmen Consoli, and Caprezza. But the heart of the festival is, of course, the couscous. You can taste versions from around the world at couscous houses set up through town. More than 40 different types. Fish couscous, meat couscous, vegetarian, gluten-free. The championships open midweek, and Italian chefs compete first. Then the international competition. Judges taste and score and award the golden couscous. In 2019, UNESCO listed couscous as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity, and the festival celebrates this. The festival is a bit crowded and chaotic, but it's worth it. If you want to find a beach closer to Palermo, I'm going to recommend Mondello. It's about 7 miles from Palermo's city center. 11 kilometers. Bus 806 from Palermo takes about 30 minutes and it's $1.40 each way. Buses run every 10 minutes in the summer. This is Palermo's beach. Fine white sand, crystal clear water, Art Nouveau architecture lining the bay. The famous building is the Stabilimento Balneare, a bathing establishment built in 1913. Yellow and white, Art Nouveau, and a fishing pier that extends into the water. Mondello gets packed with locals on weekends and in the summer. Everyone from Palermo comes over this way. If you want fewer crowds, go on a weekday or in the morning. The water is shallow for a long stretch and great for families, great for swimming. The bay is protected by Monte Pellegrino on one side and Monte Gallo on the other. You can rent chairs and umbrellas at the private lidos or claim a spot on the free public beach. It's easy, it's close, and this is where Palermo goes to swim. Thank you for joining me for episode 20B in our Regional Capitals of Italy series for this 2 mini-part series of Palermo and Sicily. Over these 2 episodes, we've walked through more than 2,000 years of history. We traced Sicily from the Greeks and Romans through Arab innovation and Norman brilliance. We stood inside the Palazzo dei Normanni beneath glowing mosaics of the Cappella Palatina. We explored the Palermo Cathedral from the rooftop to the crypt. We looked out from Monreale's Golden Heights. We moved beyond the capital to Cefalù, Agrigento, San Vito lo Capo, and Mondello. We explored festivals from Santa Rosalia to the Couscous Festival. This concludes our Regional Capitals of Italy journey north to south, continent to island, from Turin to Palermo, from Savoy courts to Sicilian markets. 20 episodes, 20 capitals, 1 country layered beyond imagination. If you've been traveling with me week by week, thank you truly. If you're just joining, you're now going to have to go back and listen to the other regions of the 20 regions of Italy that are waiting for you. Each episode has an associated blog on my website at KaterinaFerrara.com. And for deeper structure, walking tours, logistics, restaurant recommendations, accommodations, and calendars, you'll find everything you need in my Ultimate Festival and Travel Guide series that includes Sicily. If you have a travel question, I'm always available by email, Katerina@KaterinaFerrara.com. Until our next journey, travel slowly, travel deeply, and let the cities tell their stories.